Good now. And we're live.
Yay.
Awesome. Okay, good morning. Good morning. Just double checking that everything's working. Okay, it looks like everything's working. Hi, good morning. I'm Jillian Conley. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for CEO Consulting Group, and I'm here with my friends Heather and Robin. Welcome, Marketing Mondays.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
How was your weekend? Did you all do anything for Mother's Day?
Sorry, the laughter is my dad was in the emergency room, so he's fine. He's fine. But we laugh in my family that my dad does something every kind of like birthday or holiday. So
He likes the extra attention.
Yeah, pretty much.
Robin, how about you? Did you do anything?
Yeah, we had a nice cookout. My husband made burgers. My daughter wrote, one of my kids wrote 50 things I love about my mom. That was probably one of the best gifts I've
Aw,
gotten. So
that's
yeah.
awesome. I love it.
Uh,
That's
So
beautiful.
today she's my favorite. Just kidding. No, I don't have favorites.
Hey, we're live streaming. Careful. Well, today we are continuing our discussion around photography as it's National Photography Month. And we want to talk about photography in your business, how to use it to build authority and buy-in and trust, and helping you expand your reach and your overall impact in the community that your business serves. And so Heather is the owner of Sandbox Communications, and Robin, why don't you give us a quick introduction for your business and make sure you share your website with us, and we'll drop it in the chat just in case anyone wants to check you out, okay?
Okay. Well, let me put that in the chat. That's easy. I've got it shortcutted.
Perfect. Thank you.
My name's Robin Scambati. I have a corporate headshot and corporate event photography business, Robin Scambati Photography. I have a studio in Sterling, nestled in the middle of data centers and more data centers. And I have 3 employees who are awesome. And I can't believe, I was talking to my husband about it this weekend. I can't believe I have a job that I love, that I can make a living off of, and I just really enjoy working on. So I'm very, very blessed. I'm entering my 8th year of business, so I'm really
Wow,
excited. Yeah,
that's amazing.
thank
Congratulations.
you.
Well, can I ask you some questions, knowing that you've been doing this for so long? The question I always like to ask is, what pivot did you make during COVID? If you are a business before COVID and you went through COVID and you still exist today, what did you have to do during COVID to pivot and support your business? And your
Okay, so I did have to shut everything down because I'm not essential. Um, but not for long. I actually did have some businesses who decided to go more online, and so they needed headshot photography. So I still remember, I think the first business after we shut down in March of 2020, and I had to just cancel all my projects coming up, the next corporate job I had was in June. So it wasn't that long. And we were photographing with masks, and and the people were there with masks until it was their time. Um, but I spent that time learning, and that's why I tell everybody, you need to learn, and you never stop learning. I have mentors, my mentors have mentors, and we never stop learning, we never stop experimenting. And one thing I really, really uh, refined more was my studio lighting. And I just feel like I can handle any lighting situation that anybody gives me. I can be in a closet, I can be in a field with bright sun. As long as I have my equipment with me, I can pretty much handle anything. So, yeah.
Awesome. Heather, you're muted. Come back to us.
Sorry about that. I muted myself because my laugh always overtakes everything. Anyway,
I
Robin, I
love your
love.
laugh.
Thank you.
There it is.
Um,
Don't mute
so
it.
But before we got online, you and I were talking about using event photography to collect emails, and I was blown away by that idea. It's totally new and different to me, and I was hoping you could share that with folks. What exactly is it? I mean, I don't even know what to ask because that is such a unique concept.
Right.
Tell me more about that if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I'll give you kind of a standard ideal scenario.
Sure.
There's a company who has paid a lot of money for a really nice booth at a trade expo. And they're standing there hoping that people will come. And the people at this expo are their ideal clients, but they just need to find a way to get them to their booth. And my husband came home a few months ago from a conference and he had like a foam toilet. And I was like, why would anybody want a foam toilet? So, uh, my what some companies have started doing is that they'll have complimentary headshots. So they hire a
Ah, love
photographer,
it.
they set up in their booth. There's a long line of people who want headshots. I tell the companies, have a team ready. You've got a captive audience. Um, I have a sign up that they'll scan a QR code, they'll put is their first name, last name, email, but the company can add any other details, any other questions. They can have any kind of terms and conditions on there. Like if you sign up for this, then you agree to be added to our marketing list. And they've done it. You haven't done it, they've done it themselves. You can also ask them any questions like what company you're at, whatever information you need. I recommend that they don't ask too many questions and make
Yeah.
it too hard for them. But
Yeah.
they're in line anyway. They come, they get their photo taken, they're in my system because they signed up. By the time they're done with their images, they'll get their gallery. They've got an email to the email they signed up with, and their images will be in there. What it requires is my part of at least two people from my team. I've got one person on my team kind of manning the line and herding them through. And then I have another person solely on my computer seeing the images. I'm shooting tethered. They're seeing the images as they come. They're picking however many that the client and I have decided might be one, it might be four, and they're processing them right away so that by the time they're done, if the Wi-Fi is good, um, they'll look at their email and then they'll get an email saying, here's your headshots, and they'll open them up and there they are, and they can download them, share them, whatever. They can also be branded. They can be branded with a sponsor, a
Interesting.
logo. They can be um, whatever the company wants. So we have a long conversation with the client to say, what are your goals? What do you need? Now, these emails are not going to be spam emails. They're going to be real emails because these people want their images.
Yep. Yep.
So it's an awesome way to get images. So
Yeah.
I
yeah.
love it. It's so creative. Can I ask one more question, Jillian? Because
Yeah. Oh, go for it. Yeah.
I want to kind of dovetail on that. You made a comment about working with the client beforehand about goals. Well, we were talking about that with other things as well. So how do you talk to the client about what their goals are, whether it's an event or even just a single, headshot? How do you work with them to figure out what their goals are? Because do they even know sometimes?
Yeah. Sometimes they know, but then they don't know the possibilities. So I'll do both for events. I just did one this uh, last week, and it was a huge event, but it was very private. So it was for an intelligence community, and they wanted to reward their members. So only the members got photography. So there was no like marketing to them or anything. So it was super simple. Um, and then, the trade show idea that I talked about before, their goals are very different. So first of all, I'm clarifying what are your goals? Who are the people and what do you want to accomplish? What do you want at the end? So like those questions, they may not know that they can ask those questions. So I'll ask them things like that. Um, Do you want to just look like you're a great benefactor? Do you want to just look very generous? Um, Maybe it's like at a job fair or something like that. I had another event where it was with a government agency that hands out a lot of scholarships. So they didn't need any marketing information. They had already had all the information for these people. They just needed good photography to use for their own announcements. And then they told them you can use the photos however you want, the individuals. So really trying to understand, why are you doing this? What do you need? And then asking them, do you need this? Do you need this? Um, so one of the things that almost is universal is they don't want more admin work. So one of the things we tell them that they don't know that we can do is we send all of them directly to each individual privately. Like they only see their images, but the coordinator, the client, sees all of the images. They can download them all at once, or they can download them per person. Um, Sometimes they don't want that. They're just like, we don't want to see the images. We don't care about the images. We just care about the data that you send me. So I download a CSV file and send them all the data. Sometimes they do need the images. So asking them things like that. For individuals, a lot of times I'll ask them, what are the words that you want this image to evoke? I would 75% of the time they haven't actually thought about that. But obviously, someone who's a litigation lawyer is going to have a different vibe to their image than someone who's like a counselor. So
Yeah.
those are really important. Like a counselor, you want someone to be kind of leaning in, maybe looking very different. So you want their posture to be different and all that. I also ask them, where are they going to use these images? I've had some people say, well, I need like daily social media. And I actually counsel them, social media, a lot of it is they want organic, raw, real content.
Yes.
Just do it yourself. You don't need, unless you're like this, very, very high profile person who can afford to spend tens of $1,000s of images. And there are some people who do that. They'll book a session to have an entire library of images for the whole year that they
Wow.
can pull from. They've gotten their hair and makeup done. They're busy. They don't want to keep doing it. But in general, I just tell them, just do it. Just do it yourself. You don't need to have makeup on. You just look like yourself. Um, if someone says I'm doing it for a website, I'll ask them, can I see the website? Let's look at the website together. For example, if their website has a certain color background, like pure white, and they want their image on pure white, I've got to tell them you've got limitations of how you're going to crop that image or how you should put a border around that image, things like that. We're just constantly talking and trying to see what their end product is going to be and how they're going to use it. Because I don't want anyone leaving thinking, oh, well, I got things that I don't need or that don't work. So really try to figure out, do you need this? And I don't want them to get it if they don't need it. So.
I love that. And I'll turn back over to you. I really love the concept of what words do you want to evoke in your image. I hadn't thought about that before, so I really love that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So from a marketing perspective, when I think about photography, I am always convinced that it's important, whether you're doing it from your phone or if you have a camera or you get it done professionally, because it's a digital first marketing world. That's where we live. And a lot of people get their first impressions from your digital presence. And we want to make sure that that digital presence aligns. But I'm curious to know from you, Robin, why do you believe that professional photography is essential for a small business owner in 2025? Why do you feel like they should prioritize it?
I think that professional photography is essential for some small businesses.
Okay, talk to us.
I'm not going to say every small business needs it.
Mhm.
If you can get away with non-professional photography or even no photos of you, if you have a business that thrives without that, then keep going. You don't need to do it. But if you have a business where you are the face of that business, you need to show up, then you need professional photography. Um, and you need real authentic photos.
What does that mean? Talk to us about what.
That means non-AI photos. If I know someone and I see a photo that's been done by AI, I can tell. Now, if you don't ever talk to people face to face, they don't need to video chat with you. They don't need to meet you face to face. And you could literally be a robot. That's fine. But I can tell. So you don't ever want to meet with a client and then they say, oh, you're actually not 20 years younger than like your photo shows. Because a lot of those AI photos are going to make you either look older or younger, usually younger. They're trying to make you look better. And I don't like that. A lot of times people tell, the majority of people come in and tell me they're not photogenic. So that's also another reason to come in to say, actually, the real you can be photogenic. I can actually make you look really bad. Any photographer can actually make you look really bad. And that's why a lot of times when people are standing in front of me, I spend a lot of time adjusting the lights. I'm shooting photos and I tell them, don't worry about your expression, your posing. We're going to work on that later. But the lighting is so important. Photography means drawing with light. So it's extremely important. And chances are, if you think you're not photogenic, you just had a bad photography experience. So one of the things I love doing with people is having them walk out with confidence to say, well, I actually am photogenic. And realizing that just having some coaching, facial expression coaching, posing coaching, and they see it right away, no cooking done, no Photoshop, no nothing, and they're like, I look like that, is a huge confidence boost. So, yeah.
When you say coaching for posture and facial expressions, that's a new concept to me. What does that involve? How is that a part of the process? It's just new to me. I like it.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, we can actually do this in a volume setting in 30 seconds as well, but I have kind of a process. I figure out the lighting, figure out where they're standing long before we've done the clothing part. But figure out the posing, where they're standing, and then working with their head and their hair, because the hair is going to move. So we do, sometimes people, like especially women, they're not sure if they want their hair in front or the back. We'll do a lot of experimenting to see how it looks in the image. We'll experiment with the different clothes. We'll experiment, guys will just hold up different ties. But the facial expression coaching, and I'm going to give you a hot tip for anyone who's last minute real ID people going to change their license. They don't let you smile. A lot of times people think a smile means you got to show teeth, but I have people do both. So I can't talk while I do this, but I'm just going to show you, like, if you actually, Heather, do this. I'll do this live.
Okay. Now I'm a little nervous.
What I want you to do is rest your lips.
Hmm.
Don't use any muscles around your mouth, because otherwise there's a lot of tension there.
Okay.
And I want your mouth to be closed, but not pressed. Otherwise your lips will disappear. Now what I want you to do is back up your chair a little bit and then lean forward just a little bit. Good. Now, all I want you to do is very slightly, using just your neck, bring your head forward toward me. Okay. And then tilt down just a little bit. Jillian, are you seeing this? Okay. You have just really polished and straightened this jawline. Now, there's still tension in your mouth. So, yep, relax a little bit. And all I want you to do, put your glasses up unnaturally high, because I don't want the top of your lens to cross your eye. And then I just want you to just raise your cheeks up just a little, like you're trying to touch it. Yes. Okay. See, that's a smile, but it's a closed mouth smile. All right. Now, once you start really like doing something with your lips, there's tension there. So we go through lots of iterations of this, and each person's different. So I have to do it differently with each person. But I tell that to people when they tell you you can't smile for your DMV license, everyone's like this. which is not very attractive. So just do that slight cheek raise and they won't think you're smiling because you're not showing teeth. So,
I love
and
it.
yeah,
For me, the hardest part was not laughing during that whole
yes,
thing.
yes, yes, yes. But sometimes we get good photos when they bust out laughing.
Yes.
Uh, and the thing is, like, I can't even do that to myself because I have to be looking at you and telling you, okay, a little more, a little this way, a little that way. If I try to do it myself, and sometimes I'll tell people everything's a millimeter, but it makes a huge difference. So when I'm trying to do a selfie and I'm trying to turn, I'm like, whoa, that's way too far. It's very hard to tell without someone coaching you through all of that. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you. While it was very hard not to laugh during it, it was fabulous to like be able to show and share that with others. I appreciate that. So thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
So Robin, I'm curious, what are a couple like must-have images that a business should have from like headshots or behind the scenes or product images? What do you think are like the must-have images, maybe for website and social or whatever your perspective is?
Uh, it's really going to depend on the company. You know, if someone is a person to person, I photograph someone who it just really depends. I'm just running through all the people in my mind. I have several counselors in my portfolio who are in a chair, kind of leaning forward and not smiling, not frowning, just like curious looking. Um, that's really important. I photograph a lot of lawyers. I'm going to DC later this morning, and some law firms want to look fun. Some law firms want to look serious. Even within one niche, there's this
Mhm.
huge gambit of different messages they want to convey. And each one of these companies has a brief that says what message they want to convey. So I really think there's not like one must-have image. That's why there has to be a conversation. There has to be a line of communication. Um, Before, but also during. I think a lot of times people will look at their images and they'll actually select the images during the session, and we'll actually be looking at the website saying, would this fit here? Would this fit here? Should we change the background? Should we change anything about this image? So the must-have images are the images that business must have, but we don't know. They don't know for sure until they see it, until there's been this collaboration and work going on. So.
Sorry, Jillian, I don't mean to keep jumping in, but I love that. And I love that you really touched on essentially branding. You really, it's all about who you are and making sure that that comes through. And that's something that I think is so critical. We do business with people we know, like, and trust. And your personality, who you are, what you do needs to come out in those photos. At least that's my personal belief, and I love that you, so it's very selfish. I love that you touched on that. So
Yeah, there are some people though who are like, you know what, I want to get this other image just because it's cool and I just want it for myself. Like I have this different lighting that's a lot more dramatic. And I had this one man say, I'm never going to need this photo, but I just love it. I want it for myself. So I was like, that's great.
that's fun. That's totally
That's
cool.
fun. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So before we close it off for the day, I want to ask one more question about photography with you, Robin. And the question is in your opinion, sorry, this cat keeps playing on my keyboard. In your opinion, what makes a photo tell a story?
Oh, it's funny because I just posted something on LinkedIn about one of my clients who brought in a suitcase full of journals. And so I have a photo of her at a table kind of going like this with all her journals stacked up next to her. And I love it when I can be a little creative. I love headshots. I photograph a lot of children as well. And I don't do any backgrounds. I don't do pumpkins, bunnies, Adirondack next to a stream. I don't do any of that. I'm just focused on the person. That is my why. That is, I just want people to see the person. So I actually forgot what I was saying though. Just what were you asking?
What tells, like, in your opinion, what makes a photo
Oh,
tell?
oh, the story. Okay. I feel like the person tells the story, but if someone has something that's part of them that what I like is the scroll stopper. Like I feel like that stops a scroll. This person with all these journals next to her, you got to go look on my LinkedIn page.
Mhm.
Um, but I have somebody else who I took their photo and I said, oh, I want to, they've got these amazing brand colors. And I said, I'm going to put the brand color in the background. I'm going to just switch the background on the fly. And that's a scroll stopper. And I'm connected with this person on LinkedIn. And every time I scroll and I see that image, I'm like, oh, I love that. So it's a magic that happens when you kind of incorporate the person's brand, the person's uh, message that they want to convey. And there's not really a formula for that. There's just this magic that happens when you work together and collaborate. Like I really tell my clients, you're in the driver's seat. These are all tools. I'm your tool. I'm gonna help make this happen, but they're in the driver's seat, and I want them to really mesh their brand and their message with the images that come out. So.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's all my questions. Heather, do you have any more?
Yeah, I have one more, and I think it's a good place to end, actually, is you mentioned your why. So why do you love photography? What got you into it? What is about photography that really lights you up?
Okay. I've loved photography since I was a teenager. I'm old enough to have done photography in dark
Yeah, I
rooms,
love
sharpening them, and chemicals. I just loved it. But and my first camera was my dad's camera. He died when I was 12, and
Mm.
what I got from him was his camera, his fully manual Pentax K1000 camera, which high school still used to teach photography. Um, and I love taking photos. I love developing them. But when there was no AP photography there. I did not feel like there was, I didn't know, maybe there was, but uh, majors in college and careers in marketing, photography, design, things like that. So I took a safe route and I became an engineer. And I thought I need a job that will support me. I really didn't enjoy it. And after a certain period of time, I switched to defense contracting. I like that, but took some time off to focus on my kids. And then when I was going back to work, I thought, I want to do something I love. And so I'm going to give photography a shot.
Uh-huh.
And I am, Jillian or Heather, both of you know this. Being in the CEO business school, I took all those personality tests and everything. I'm a learner, I'm a maximizer, I'm an input. So, when I want to study something, I just went full in. And that engineering background helped a lot because photography is a lot of technical. It is, people don't think it is. It's just very creative, but it is super technical and you have to understand the technical. And I love that. I read manuals. So um, it's funny because when I started my business, a friend of mine had just gone to this Catholic retreat and she said, the person there said your dream job is what you loved as a teenager. And I just kind of got goosebumps because I said, I'm in my dream job. And that's why I said in the beginning, I'm in my dream job. My why is, I don't know if I want to tell this story, something that happened with one of my children. And she really thought that because of what some people were saying, that she came on one day and she said, maybe I'm just not worthy. And I was like, oh boy, that is not true. And so I've had so many clients. Okay, I'm going to tell you about this one client. I know we're at time. She was not very happy. And it was a fast thing. It wasn't something that, she wasn't in my studio. And thankfully, one of my assistants who can vocalize some things. She's like, aren't you proud of me? I bit my tongue. So that's what it was like. But at one point, I just put my hand on her And because she said something like, oh, I'm just not going to look good. And I put my hand on her and I said, I don't usually show people in this setting. I don't, usually I show people photos on my monitor, but this was such a fast setting. I didn't have time to do that. But I said, I'm going to show you the photo on the back of my camera because that's a lie. And she totally changed. And then she said, you know what? I still remember when I was 12, my mother saying, you are just not photogenic. And this woman was probably in her 50s or 60s. And I said, that's a lie. And you've been carrying that on your shoulders for decades. And that's not true. And her demeanor completely changed. So I feel like I have this ability to change people's opinions about themselves and give them confidence. And that grew from having my child say that and saying, no, you are worthy. And I'm going to try my darndest to prove that to you. So,
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That was beautiful. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Well, for everyone who's hopped on to watch us live, or if you're watching the replay, feel free to ask questions in the chat or in the comments below. We will see you next week to continue out our series on photography and marketing. Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.